guys, chapter 12, key issue 2. We did not have one for key issue 1, so that was a short section, and really all you need to know are what type of services there are and like where they're located. So, unit 5, chapter 10, we looked at agriculture, so that was the primary economic sector. Last unit, we were looking at mostly manufacturing, so that would be the secondary economic sector. This chapter 12 is about the tertiary economic sector. Okay, so we're talking about services, mostly anybody who delivers some sort of good or information or does something for the population. That's a service. Okay, lots of different types of services. Also, for chapter 12, key issue 2, there's a lot of models, and, well, I guess there's not that many models, but there's a lot of models in this unit altogether. So make sure you're bringing your map journal every day. There's going to be a lot of those, okay? All right, our first model, and you might want to just, like, make a little doodle for yourself, but we will do a map journal on this, so don't sweat it too much. It's central place theory, which was also sometimes called Christoller's theory. Christoller is the guy you need to know that is associated with central place theory. He looked at cities in Germany, and that's kind of how he came up with this theory in 1930. And what it does, it identifies the most profitable location for a service. So whereas Alfred Weber's model looked at the most profitable location for manufacturing or some kind of industry, this looks at the most profitable location for a service. Okay, so the central place is the market center. Let me get my pointer here. Is the market center where goods and services are exchanged. For this one, our star is the big center. So our big market center. Okay. And then central places compete against one another. So these blue, I guess those are diamonds, are also market centers. Not as big as the big market center, but there are other market centers. These are intermediate centers on the outside, these triangles here, so those are a little bit bigger. Subcenters would be the smallest. So all of these centers are competing with one another. Okay, and the theory is that these hexagons are the borders of a town. Okay, so people in this town are going to be attracted to this center. Okay, people in this town are going to be attracted to this center, and I'll tell you why. Because most people prefer to get their goods from a closer location. And that's especially true if it's kind of ordinary things, right? Where are you going to go to get a Big Mac in Spanish Springs? You're probably going to go to the McDonald's that's close to the school. Why? Because the Big Mac is the same no matter where you go, so why wouldn't you just go to the closest one, right? If you run out of, I don't know, milk for dinner or something like that, you're probably going to go to the grocery store that is closest to you. So most people prefer to go to the closest location to get their services. So the closer that consumers are to the center, the more likely they are to utilize that place for their services. Okay? So like it wouldn't make sense for, let's say, people in this town over here to go all the way over to this center, right? They're going to go to the closest one, which is right here. All these hexagons are borders, okay? So the further away or closer to the periphery, the more likely consumers are to go elsewhere for services, okay? Basically what I just showed you. Two things that are essential to keep in mind for central place theory is range and threshold. Range is the maximum distance people are willing to go to travel to use a service. So basically, again, like this guy, these people in this town are not going to go down here to get celery, right? They're going to go right here, okay? Or they're going to go right here. Whatever's closer and most convenient, but there's two options for them. So in central place theory, this would be the radius of the hexagon. So these guys are not going to go like outside of their radius. That's the range. Obviously, towns are not all set up like this in pretty little hexagons, but that's the best Chris Stoller could do. Actually, he picked hexagons because we are talking about hexagons, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. Okay. Because they're like the in-between of a square and a circle. Okay. So those day-to-day services that you utilize, those are things you're going to go close to, right? You're not going to drive all the way across town to get gas. You're wasting gas by doing that, right? That doesn't make any sense. People go longer different distances for special things. Like I went to a Lady Gaga concert in September or August, I think, in Las Vegas, because guess what? She wasn't coming to Reno. Pity. If you guys want to go see a professional basketball game, closest you can get is Golden State Warriors, right? You're going to have to go over the hill for that. So like specialty things are things that people are willing to go further for. The threshold is the minimum number of people that are needed to support a service or a business, okay? It's not purely like the head count. It also depends on the product. You have to think about, well, I'm not going to have a lot of, I don't know, like, okay, I'm not going to put a Forever 21 in right around a bunch of retirement communities, right? You have to think about those sorts of things when you're also locating a service. So the threshold, you want to make sure, like a shopping mall should be in a really populated area, right? You don't want to put a shopping mall in the middle of nowhere because then nobody's going to go to it. Does that make sense? You could put like a little corner store in a not so populated area because the threshold doesn't need to be that high. But for like a super Walmart or something like that, you want kind of a more populated area. Does that make sense? You can ask me in class if it doesn't. Okay. I don't know if I'd call it, it's not really a model, it's a rule, rank size rule, is if you take the largest settlement of a country, the second largest settlement is half that size. Ow! My dogs are biting me. Third largest is a third of that size. And guess how big the fourth largest is? Quarter of the size. Not all countries follow this rule, but lots of them do. So that means, like, let's say the population of the big city is 10 million. The next biggest city is going to be 5 million. The next biggest city is going to be 2.5 million, and so on. Does that make sense? You guys get that? Then there's also the primate city rule. The largest settlement has twice as many people as the second largest settlement. So that's part of rank size rule. But there are there's lots of countries that have like a primate city and then it doesn't like totally follow rank size rule after the second city. Does that make sense? So primate cities, examples you might want to jot down. Mexico City is a primate, is it? Paris is a primate city. Sao Paulo, Brazil is a primate city. We're going to talk about lots of primate cities. So why does rank size rule matter? The presence of many cities of large populations means that there is enough wealth to justify more goods and services. If a country does not follow the rule, it is likely that there is not enough wealth for the right variety of goods and services. So if you're talking about locating a service if you're choosing between different countries, you'd want to pick a country that followed the rank size rule and had a collection of larger cities, right? Because that means you have a high threshold and your range doesn't have to be too high because you have all of these cities to choose from, right? Does that make sense? Okay, I always ask you if it makes sense as if you can talk back to me. You think I would have learned that by chapter 12, that you guys can't do that, but whatever. The gravity model is another model that predicts the most optimal location of a service, and it says that that location is directly related to the number of people in that area and inversely related to the distance people have to travel for that service. So it's the best location, minimizes the distance and greatest amounts, and has the greatest amount of people. So basically, it's very similar to central place theory. It's just a little bit different. The best location is one where the distance people have to travel is short and the amount of people, the threshold, is the highest. Does that make sense? We're going to talk about how that's a little bit different than central place theory in class because it sounds the same, I know. Okay, megacities are really, really common in semi-periphery and periphery countries, and they are rising rapidly in semi-periphery and periphery countries. A megacity is a city that has a population of over 10 million, okay? If your city does not have 10 million, you would not be considered a megacity. 8 million? Sorry, not a megacity, okay? 20 million? Definitely a megacity. So, these cities hold huge, rapidly growing populations, emphasis on rapidly growing populations, which is why it makes sense that they're in the periphery and semi-periphery. Growth is usually uncontrolled. There's not a lot of urban planning or rhyme or reason to what is happening. Resources are typically strained. And this isn't true of all megacities because like New York City is a megacity. But in the periphery and semi-periphery, squatter settlements are also really common, also called shanty towns, meaning people make makeshift houses out of what they can find. It's not like they purchased a house. It's not like they purchased the land. They just kind of set up a place to live in a space. Okay, so examples, these are all in semi-periphery, periphery countries: Jakarta, Manila, Karachi, Shanghai. There you go. Here's some pictures of them. So yes, very, very crowded cities. Okay. And the last thing is just a review on site and situation. So site and situation are taken into account when settlements are established, right? Here's an example. Why is San Francisco located on the coast? Because it was important to have water access when a lot of these cities were developed, right? You'll notice that most big cities are on some sort of, or near some sort of water access, right? Chicago is on Lake Michigan. New York City is on the Atlantic Ocean. Los Angeles, San Diego are on the Pacific Ocean coast, okay? Houston is on the coast of the Gulf of Mexico. So that would be a situational characteristic. And then site. Let's see, we're going to talk about this more in class, but Boston, for example, was a colonial city when it was established, so it still has a lot of that colonial architecture and culture. That would be an example of site, right? Because of the vast mountains and wilderness that's in Montana, they have like kind of that culture, right? So does Wyoming, sort of that cowboy culture. So site and situation, those definitely have to do with how cities are initially developed and how they develop over time. Has a lot to do with their site and situation. Very important. Okay, that is it. I will see you back here for Chapter 12, Key Issue 3. There is no video for Key Issue 4. I'm going to get those Chapter 13 videos up here as soon as I can. I would recommend watching some over spring break just because it's going to be a lot. So, all right. My dogs were pretty quiet today. That's exciting. Okay. Sorry. It's taking forever to get to the screen where I can pause it. Okay, bye.